All right, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We thank Yoav Gonen from the city for joining us. Switching gears as we do every week at this time, let's say good evening to Ana Selena, who is a writer, poet, and has a new book coming out. Nice
Yes,
to meet you. Nice to see you, Anna. How are
nice
you?
to
Everything
meet.
all right?
Yes, everything is great. Nice to meet you too, Gary.
And so you're excited. You have the book. Hold it up because
Yes.
it's not out quite just yet. It is Ana Selena,
hmm
Memories Under
Under the
the
moon.
Moon. And this is your first book of poetry,
Yes, it's my first official self-published book very soon.
self-published.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Tell us about writing poetry. When did you start? Have you always wanted to? Was it one day you woke up and said, "Oh, I think I'm going to write," or did you go to school for it? Just a little background about you.
Honestly, I used to write a lot. I used to journal a lot when I was in high school. So that's where the inspiration came from. I was in a theater class in high school. So
Oh,
I used to write
what
like
class? What?
a theater class, so
A
like
theater
drama.
class. Okay.
hmm
Hmm.
So my inspiration with writing came a lot from writing scripts and writing monologues. And then when I started getting into relationships, falling in love, I started
Oh, isn't
pouring
that
my
sweet?
heart out into writing. And so that's really where my poetry inspiration came from just experiencing different things.
You know, I always ask this question to people who
hmm
write about relationships, and I think about songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. I'm older than you, so listened to the Beatles when I was younger,
Yeah.
and the intricacies of the relationships that they wrote about were startling.
Yeah.
Do you write about stuff only that you experienced, or do you see stuff and say, you know what, this is a story I can write? And in other words, are they all firsthand, or sometimes you say, well, I saw a friend has a relationship, and so I'm going to interpret it and view it in that way. Tell me
It's
about your
like my
philosophy, I
process.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, your
Uh,
process. Thank you.
yeah, it's a little bit mixed. So it's like some of them are definitely firsthand, but some of them I'm just like, I love analyzing things through like a different point of view. So like my friends would go through things and I'm just like, I feel like I can write about that. So I'll take a little bit of their experience, but without adding them into it because I want it to be like a little bit anonymous so I
Yeah,
don't put
a
them on
little
the
generic.
spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But it's definitely mixed. It's both of them for sure.
That's fascinating to me because um, the stuff that I've read that you've written is
Yeah.
very nuanced and shows a real depth of understanding of what relationships are and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. How prolific are you? Do you write every day? Do you write? Is it like Saturday morning is my writing time, or what do you do?
I normally so I journal every day. I
You
re
journal
sorry,
every day.
yeah, so I journal. So it's just like I try to get my intentions for the day, like to really set my mind. But because sometimes I feel very like lethargic, like very like apathetic sometimes, where I'm just like not in the mood to like write about like what I'm feeling all the time. But sometimes it's just like,
Can I just interject before
yeah,
that? Because that can be very challenging sometimes. I mean, I
yes.
know for myself, and I'm not writing poetry, it's
Yeah,
like, "It's enough already. I just wanna" for me, I go and watch the ball game, or
yeah.
something like that. And so for you, even though you're committed to this, you do need to get away.
Yeah, I do need to get away. Like, I love, like, sitting by the river, like, watching the sunset to just sort of, like, recharge. So as soon as I
What a
feel like
romantic you are.
so as soon as I feel like, "Okay, like, Anna, you can write about what you were feeling earlier," that's when I get in the mood, but I can't just, like, sit down and just like, "Okay, well, I felt this way about this person." It just has to, like, hit me in the moment, to be honest.
Mhm. These poems in Memories Under the Moon were written
Mhm.
since 19, excuse me, since 2017. No, not 19,
Yeah.
since 2017. Did you always say to yourself, maybe if I get enough of them, I'll make a book? Or did one day it occurred to you and you said, well, wait a minute, look, I got all this. This is a book.
Honestly, like, I've written throughout the years, I've written, like, a lot of poems, and I would share them with my friends. So, mostly, like, the inspiration to put out a book, came from my friends. I just thought, "Oh, I'll share my poems on, like, Instagram or, like, social media and stuff like that, just to have it within, like, a small community." But the inspiration to write a book really came from the creative side of some of my friends. They're like, "You have to put this out, like,
Oh,
more
wow. That's
people have
nice.
to, yeah, hear your words." So, yeah, it definitely
You
came from
have
them.
really good friends.
Yes, they're
No,
amazing, to be
clearly you do.
honest.
Listen, I'm just there was one poem that was shared with me, and we're gonna ask you
Yeah,
to read one, but I
okay.
just think, um, the way you see the world, the way you see people is just
Yeah.
so beautiful and so romantic.
Thank
The
you.
curves of her waist are a curated masterpiece. She has the power to play an instrument inside of you without ever playing a key. How beautiful, how wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
that would listen, then we could go through the whole thing that I have here. Why don't you
Yeah,
pick one out and read one,
yeah.
right?
Of course,
Gary
yeah.
puts you on the spot. That's my job.
Gary has put me on the spot. I am ready when you are.
I'm ready. What is there a title to this, or do any of them
Yes.
have titles? Go ahead.
So yeah, I literally started titling them a few months ago before they had no title. But then I went through all of my poems, and I was just like, let me give them a title. So this one is called "What I Love About Her."
What I
Um,
love about her.
mhm. What I love about her. She loves to fly. I don't mean like airplanes. I mean like the way she finally realizes she is the pilot of her own story, jet setting and gliding to where her heart is most happy. This is clarity. A deep sigh high above the atmosphere where she burst alive. Her eyes are the front view window seat where her imagination takes her way into the clouds, cutting through where the sky blends with blues and purple swirls. She's everything I love when I think of flying. What I love about her. So yeah, that was a quick, short one.
There you go. There you go.
Thank
This is
you.
Memories Under the Moon. Do you think of an audience when you write? I mean, let's put it this way: when I do my art, which is this, I always
Yeah.
think of the people who are watching, so that we deliver them something of entertaining or informational.
Yeah.
Do you think of an audience that
Yeah.
that you write for?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I think about like people that are my age, people that
How
have like
okay? How old are you?
I'm sorry, I'm 26 years old. So
Okay,
people in my
I
20s.
could have guessed, but I didn't want to be rude.
No, it's totally okay. So I definitely think of people in like in their 20s. I think of people questioning their sexuality because that's something that like really empowered my poems as well, where I was like going through different relationships and I was kind of questioning my own sexuality in the point as well. I think about them as an audience, women, men, and people in their 20s, basically.
Well, and so, when you write something like what we just heard,
Yeah,
in a way, you're thinking of, people, uh, that you just described so that they
yeah,
can, do better in their relationships, et cetera. You talked about poems, written, from 2017.
yeah,
Uh, all of that 6 years of work goes into this book. Are you
yeah.
gonna feel after the book comes out, are you gonna feel a little pressure to say, "Wow, now I gotta start again," and is it gonna take me 6 years to come up with in other words, the record album for musicians is all the stuff they've done their whole life, and then
Yeah.
the second album is the toughest. Do you think about that at all? Or
I
are you just a fountain and it keeps coming out?
honestly, I have been thinking about that because I'm like, okay, so this took 6 years to finally realize through the help of my friends that I should probably put out a little book and to put out another one, like a series, because the book is obviously called Memories Under the Moon. I'm very fond of like the different phases of the moon. But then I started thinking, what if I like make something like that's like under the sun or something, or like
It's
just
funny you would say that because I was just thinking, "Gee, what would be the next one?" The next one
exactly,
would be
yeah.
like reality under the sun or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely a little bit of pressure because 'cause I'm just like, it's gonna be a lot of more poems that have to be
That that
created.
will
Mhm.
that will be an interesting thing because you'll have kind of a new concept, and then you're probably
Yeah,
gonna try to write for that concept to some
yeah,
degree, as
because
opposed to having all the stuff and then titling it after the fact.
exactly, yeah. Because
There you
within,
go.
like, the last 6 years, it's like I didn't really write those poems with the mindset that I'm gonna put out a book, I just wrote them. So now that this book is being gonna be put out in a few weeks, I'm just like, "Okay, now when I write more poems, I feel like I'm gonna have the mindset of, like, this is gonna be in the second poem book," but I'm
Right.
not really sure, yeah.
Right. Did you study poetry in school? I mean, were you a
Never,
fan? Never did. So I
never
so I
did,
was
yeah.
gonna ask you, like, was Edgar Allan Poe your favorite poet or anything like that?
I definitely read Edgar Allan Poe, but I never, like, had to really study it from school,
Okay.
yeah.
So I look, now we're divulging people who know me from
Mhm.
TV. I was an English major in college.
Really?
So that was I was not a media major or anything like that. So I spent a lot of time reading a lot of different poets and lot of different stuff. Never felt compelled to write a book of poetry.
Yeah.
Every now and then, and maybe I'll dash something out. Um, just back to the whole idea of muse.
Mhm.
Um, do you sit down quietly in the house and do it? Or do you shut up turn off the phone and shut everything away? Or like some people work best if they have the TV on or music on or something like that?
I definitely love to have a little ambiance, so, like, the lights have to be a little dim. I sometimes will have, like, a candle, like, near me.
Oh, so you're doing
Uh
Memories Under the Moon. That's what we're
Literally, yeah.
doing.
Like, sometimes I'll write them, like, in a notebook, but most of my poems, since I have my phone available always, like, it'll start off with an idea, so I'll start off with a line and, like, I'll write it in, like, my notes app on my phone. Um, thank goodness for the 21st century with technology. But yeah, I'll definitely write some of them in my notes, and then I'll transfer it to a notebook. Like, it just feels so much more
And
natural just
and you
writing it.
handwrite it?
Yeah, I handwrite it first because
Oh,
it I don't know,
that's
my thought
fascinating.
yeah, my thought process with
And
writing, like, it just I don't
wow.
know.
Well, I can understand that because that's the creative process. So
Yeah,
you handwrite them and then retype them. Do you
retype
find
them,
that
yeah.
you edit a lot when you finally, put them, digitally? You do?
Yes, I do, yeah. There are some times where I'm just like, I'll write certain phrases into, like, my journal, and I'm like, I don't really like the way that flows with the entire poem because sometimes I just, like, go on and on and on, and I'm just like, "Okay, no, I was just
Well,
my
you know
thought
what?
process."
We have that discussion with painters and artists all the time. How do you know you're
Yeah,
done? How do you know you're finished? You could just
yeah.
keep going. Listen, Anna, it's just an absolute joy to talk to you. When will the book be published, and when can we
Mhm.
see it? How what's
Yes.
next?
What's next? I officially decided on a date, so April 6th. Just
Okay.
because I wanted to be intentional with it. April 6th is our next full moon, I believe. Um,
Oh,
so
how
it's in
clever.
theme with the book. So I'll definitely publish it on April 6th. The book cover is completely different from what I showed you earlier. And the book is divided into the moon phases, so it's definitely going to be
Wow.
very meaningful and
What a
intentional.
gr listen, my applause. Listen, check out the Lit Bar in the South Bronx. They work with young writers, and I'm sure
Oh,
they would
nice.
love to, it's the only bookstore in the Bronx,
Yeah.
and, the Lit Bar,
Lip
L-I-T,
bar.
Lit
Okay.
Bar, and, I'm sure they'd love to have you, and if you've got a book of poetry like that,
Mhm.
I'm sure they'll work with you, and
Thank you
maybe
so
they'll make a
much.
little show out of it. Anyway, so the next poem she's gonna write is "The Annoying Talk Show Host." No,
No, I would
no.
never.
Anna Selena, thank you so much for joining us and brightening
Thank
up
you
our
so
day
much.
and our, nighttime under the full moon. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Gary. It was
All
a
right,
pleasure.
that'll do it for the Bronx Buzz. We thank Yoav, for the first segment, Anna for the second segment, and, we'll be back next week. Now I'm all energized. Thank you to,
Yes.
Anna for doing that. We'll see you next week. Good night.